and together they agreed upon the quorum is 50%, simple majority, right? 50 or 50% more. That means 6 or more. Now, if that decision has been made by the group, and then after some kind of meeting, only 5 people turn say, can the chair say this is enough for a quorum?
The chair can recognize the quorum unless challenged. Now, by recognizing, they can count any way they want. If there's 5 people there, they can pretend that there's 2 people in each body if they want to. I mean, you basically sometimes need to conduct business and keep going. Now, if the chair is challenged by that, then you're going to have to deal with that, and you're going to have to deal with it fairly. But anyway, that's just a little comment. I don't want to get too far off on that. I only mention that to say that you, as the chair, can recognize a quorum typically, especially in a situation where it's late in the meeting. Okay, let's talk about the procedures at a meeting. Obviously, you're going to have business. And in order to have something considered by the body, you're going to want to receive motions as the chair. So someone would make a motion in order to to introduce business, a primary motion. All right, it's done simply by saying, I move that such and such. Now, in order to make a motion, you have to be a member of the body. I know it came up in the previous discussion about, well, can anybody make a motion? Well, yes, but you have to be officially there. You have to be a member of the body. A guest cannot make a motion. Someone who is not supposed to be there but maybe was invited, or if it's an open meeting and the general public can come and be a part of it, that's great. But they cannot participate and make motions. Okay? Now, they can be called upon. You're the chair. You can call upon them to comment. And if they have a question, you can certainly allow them to ask that question. They cannot make a motion because they're not a part of the body. All right, I move that such and such is to happen. Now, most things in a meeting, most business that's introduced, needs to have a second. It is debatable and amendable, and a majority vote is typically enough. Again, unless your bylaws state differently. But typically that's the case. Most things require a second. Most motions require a second. They are debatable. They are amendable. And the majority of those there must approve it in order for that business to go forward. Now, there are some notable exceptions, which we will talk about as we get there. To second a motion, you simply say, I second the motion. You all seen this done. Someone makes the motion, someone seconds it. Typically, the secretary will want to record that in the minutes as to who made the motion, who made the second, and then you're basically done. You've got the thing on the floor. The next thing is that you have discussion of that, or basically debate. We'll talk about that in just a minute. To postpone or suspend consideration of a matter. That's another thing that is also debatable, and you can discuss that. In order to do that, you have to move that you postpone until a certain time. And again, it has to be seconded, it can be debated, amended, and so forth. Now, to debate a motion, that happens right after the second is made. It is called the discussion time. Now, typically, sometimes people will want to start talking about it before there's a second. Well, technically, unless there is a second, you can't have discussion about it. And sometimes somebody will introduce some wild, crazy idea, and they want to talk about it, but nobody else does. So that motion never got a second, and technically, you as the chair should not allow discussion on it until someone does second it and puts it literally on the floor or on the table or whatever for that discussion. Okay, then the discussion needs to be a very, a discussion that's civil. Okay, you shouldn't interrupt people. People should be allowed to say what they need to say, and discussion can be had. And we'll talk about in the next section kind of how you end that discussion. Now, well, let's just go ahead and talk about it. Ending debate. You have to do something called move the previous question. Now, typically, you will just be discussing something today, literally, and you're kind of tired of hearing it. People keep talking about it, and so on and so on, and finally you just decide, okay, we know how we're going to vote on this thing. We've heard enough discussion. sometimes the speaker will say, I would entertain a motion to call the question. Hint, hint, if someone isn't smart enough to come up with that on their own. But you move their previous question. Now, this is unlike the other motions that we talked about that are always debatable, renewable, and all that sort of thing. And a motion to move the previous question, or essentially to end debate, cannot be, it must be seconded, but it is not debatable, it's not amendable, and actually 2/3 of those present need to vote in support of it. Okay? And so that's one case where a majority is typically not enough. Again, unless your bylaws say differently. Typically, you need 2/3. Yes.
So you're saying that 2/3 of the people there have to vote that yes, we want to move on to a vote?
That's correct.
Okay.
Typically that's the case. Now, I'm just giving you general ideas here. Any organization can adjust their rules, according to whatever they want. But typically, absent some kind of a ruling or whatever, you need more. You need 2/3, 67% basically of those present in order to end debate. Because a simple majority, typically is not enough. You had a question.
I would like to do a motion, but I missed the biggest point.
So,
In a sense, the concept I missed is that move the previous question. If you don't mind, just summarize.
you're wanting to end debate. Let's say that someone made a motion, seconded a motion, and you've been discussing it for 15 minutes. And everybody's throwing in their discussion, but there's a motion on the floor. You as the chair, we're not going to get anything else done in this meeting unless we vote on this motion. It's been seconded. We need to get on with things. So, you as the chair can entertain a motion from the floor to end debate. And what you say is, I move the previous question. That's just.
And the chair offer the motion or not?
The chair typically, what I would do is say, I would entertain a motion to move the previous question. The chair can always hint to the membership that it's time to move on. And also, the chair may determine on his or her own that, okay, we're ready for a vote. Okay? Remember, you're the chair. You're the king. And you can do it. Now, if the chair is not ending the debate on his or her own, you, as a member of the body, can say, enough. Let's move the previous
Other
question.
motions, he could offer the motion too, or not?
Well, he wouldn't offer the form of a motion. The chair would simply just say, okay, we're ready for a vote. Hearing no objection, we will now vote on this. Because the chair will basically say, I believe that everybody's had their piece, and we're starting to repeat, comments again. So that's like, yes, sir.
How do you word it? Anybody says I move to vote instead of in the previous question.
Well, I think that's the same thing. Let's have to have a vote on it. Basically, that's just another way of saying,
You can
Kleenex,
say, okay,
tissue paper. It's basically the same thing. Okay, so we've debated the motion. We've ended debate. Now, let's take some of the easier ones, like to recess a meeting. I move that we recess. It must be seconded, but again, it's not debatable. So you have to vote on whether to recess the meeting right then, because basically that is a temporary thing. Somebody has to go to the bathroom, or we need to stop so that we can take a phone call or whatever. If it's important for the meeting to temporarily recess, that is something that someone can make. It's not debatable. All right, now, to adjourn the meeting, that one is also not debatable. But again, all of these motions must be seconded. A majority is required to recess. A majority is required to end the meeting. Okay? Okay, so that's that section. Now, the tougher part is the use of parliamentary procedure to deal with urgent matters or disruptions. All right, first, to object to a procedure or to a personal matter. Okay, this one is a little bit tough. In order to do this, you typically, as a member of the body, would say, point of order. Okay, that's where you would come out and basically say, point of order. Now, this is one instance where you can interrupt the speaker. Remember we said earlier that we have a civil meeting and that we let people finish their thought before we interrupt.